All right, in the last lesson, we ended our discussion of encoding and storage with a brain that has weak memory traces in the cortex and a strong memory trace in the hippocampus. And again, the strong memory trace is in the hippocampus is linking the cortical memory traces together to form kind of like an index. And we said the reason for the difference in strength of these memory traces had to do with plasticity differences among neurons in those areas of the brain. In this lesson, then, we'll begin the inquiry into the implications for school. The claim is understanding our brains can help us become better learners, and we'll tackle two of these important implications. First, we need to be paying attention. If we want to learn, we have to pay attention. Why is that? Because when we pay attention, we're going to make stronger cortical and hippocampal memory traces. And to illustrate that, we'll just use a brain here. When we're not paying attention very well, so poor attention, the idea is we're only weakly activating those areas of the brain that should be processing the learning event. We're weakly activating those areas indicated by the dashed red icon there. And furthermore, as a consequence of the weak activation of neurons there, we're making weak memory traces. Look, there's not much ink being written down there. And this is occurring both in the cortex and in the hippocampus. Notice the difference with focused attention. With focused attention, the activity levels are increased in these areas of the brain, and as a result, we get stronger memory traces being formed in the cortex and in the hippocampus. So scientists think that the effect of attention, what attention is doing, is attention is amplifying neural activity in the sensory areas that are processing the learning event. And the result of that is we can make stronger cortical memory traces as well as stronger hippocampal memory traces. Now, attention seems like such a psychological thing. Like, we know what it feels like to pay attention to something. But in the brain, there is something specific going on. The regions of the frontal cortex are sending electrical signals back to these sensory areas, right? Remember, the back of the brain, this is we're figuring out what's happening. So these attention signals, these are actual signals traveling along nerve fibers, axons, and what the effect is that they're activating the populations of neurons in our sensory areas. So attention signals are increasing the excitability of these sensory areas. So whatever it is that we are seeing in the environment or hearing or whatnot is going to have a greater impact. It will excite more neurons and excite them more vigorously. And as a result, we'll be left with stronger memory traces. So poor attention then is going to make these cortical memory traces even weaker than they normally are, and in addition, we'll be left with a weak hippocampal memory trace. And we'll see that has negative implications when we talk about retrieval. Now, the second implication for school is the following, that we want to use short study sessions. And why is this? Because hippocampal neurons quickly maximize synapse strength. You'll recall that we described the hippocampal neurons as having high plasticity. With one learning event, they can really strengthen the synapses between those neurons involved in the learning. And that's what explained the strong hippocampal memory trace down here. Well, the flip side of this, though, is if one learning can already strengthen this synapses a lot, well, then continued learning is going to lose effectiveness. So long study sessions will not be as effective over time because we've already achieved the gains in synapse strength with just the first learning event. So the way the hippocampus is working, we can think of the hippocampus as a fast learning system. Well, if it's a fast learning system, the flip side of that is that we're losing effectiveness. If we continue to study the same material for longer and longer periods of time, we're not doing anything beneficial because we already made the synapse gains early in the study session. In the next lesson, we'll look at a third implication, that we need to get quality sleep.